because I want to make sure that you can actually see it, that it's public, if I'm even on yet. It's not showing. There we go. Do you see it yet? And my dog.
There we go. Yep, it's live. Yep, I'll share that to my page, and there we go.
Awesome. Hey guys, my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon. Angel and Kay. Looks like some people are popping on as you guys are popping on, and I'm trying to get my dog to stop barking. I'm really excited here to be with Peter Slattery here. It's his second time I think he's been on the show. And before we get started, if you guys want to post where you are from and your name and like what city, state, country, where you're at. Anyway, I'm slowly seeing that people are popping on here, but we're not able to go on YouTube. So he's posting. And if you guys could do your due diligence and share and post too, because right now I'm in YouTube jail for a little bit longer. But this is Peter. This is Peter Slattery and Peter Maxwell Slattery. And while we are waiting for people to pop on, please, why don't you give a little background bio of who you are and kind of what you're doing. And we know you're an author, an experiencer. I actually met you doing a remote viewing class with John at Ascension. And I just liked your vibe and who you are and what you're all about. And we kind of, from there, had you on the show. And it's been, what, I don't know, a few months since I talked to you. But
yeah, it's been a while. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, basically I'm an experiencer, somebody that's dedicated my life full time to helping others with their experiences, but also initiating it and understanding the greater reality of not just what I'd say extraterrestrials wouldn't even be 5% of what's out there. Once you get past the high dimensional beings that are extraterrestrials, you go into complete different realms and basically how everything's one consciousness interacting with itself. So that's sort of where my main focus is. I've done a lot of television, lots of books, documentaries. I've actually got a documentary coming out this year that's mainstream to do with my case, that's featuring John Vivanco with the remote viewing team, what they've found with their analysis. James Gilliland, Mary Rodwell, who's worked with a lot of children, and Jason Gleaves, who's worked for UK Air Force and also Aerospace, who's done the image analysis of the footage and the material that I've been able to present. So I guess things are getting more and more out there. I've been pretty much shadow banned for most of the time that I've been in the public eye for over 10 years now. So I'm sort of just one of those people that people come across when they're meant to, and that's quite fine. It's not going to stop me doing what I do, but yeah, that's sort of just a brief, we could say, thumbnail sketch of who I am, or what we perceive as who I am anyway, because it's all illusionary state.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I love it. And you mentioned Mary. Mary's a good friend, and I've done a little bit of work with her, coming through my own things, dealing with my own healing and my own connections and understanding and trauma and all of that. She's actually been on the show, and she's going to be on again this Thursday, just the way the timeline worked. And I know you've worked with her quite a bit, and I love it. Yes. So definitely looking forward to that interview too. But so when I reached out to you, you had just done an interview, and I saw it and I was just blown away because you were talking about all of the things that we can do. And this is months ago, about just like going inward, connecting with God, connecting with nature, trying to keep, our sanity in the middle of all these shifts and changes that are going physically, electrically, emotionally. And I just loved your interview then. And you were kind of like in the writing stages and, basically like, hey, I'm feeling to lay low for a little bit, and, call me in a few months and we'll get this done. So I'd love to know like what you've been doing over the last few months to keep your sanity, but I also love to hear about your new book coming out and what kind of things that maybe you could see other people tapping into to keep that sanity as well, because as you can see, there's a lot of opportunity to practice sanity in the middle of all the external things right now. So
yeah,
jump in and tell us what you're doing and what's been up.
quite busy, probably the busiest I've ever been, but it's been really good. Like for 9 months of the pandemic here, I was locked up in a cabin basically in the middle of nowhere. I didn't see family or friends pretty much for the entire time. But to me, it was a time to go within even more. I've done a few what we could say is retreats where I will meditate for 10 days. I don't talk to anyone, no electronics, no eye contact, just food when I need it, and meditation techniques, which is really a key to self-mastery with what I call observation of just senses, observing your thoughts, your inner hearing and in a vision. Basically going even through the 5 senses, the mind's eye, and what I call thought transfer really is a key to even multidimensional contact. So I'll elaborate on that soon, but there was a lot of that going on. I went through and basically did different editions of my books that were already out. Plus I wrote, I think, 2 books in that time as well. Got the documentary done as well. So there was a lot of work going on with that, but I've actually just moved and I'm opening up JS Sanctuary. And so I'm on 6 acres now that I've purchased, many years in the works. So this is sort of going to be a place, or already is, but I'm not opening for about 3-4 months, where only the people that are willing to do the inner work and have proper contacts do I want coming here. It's not open just to the public. It's invitation only, private invitation. I've got basically a portal circle that I've worked with, meditation pyramid, fire pit. There's a lake here, a little bit of just beautiful scenery. So I'm doing like 10 hours a day getting into all that. Plus I'm doing my readings with clients and the connecting to your guides methods and things like that. So it's really been action packed, and finding this place, the journey during all that was crazy. There has been a lot of contact, but in terms of that, what I say to people is that it's really got to do with doing the inner work first. So this is where what I was going into with the senses. People want the beings to just land their crafts, physically get out. I've had that happen. But the thing is, we've got to raise our consciousness. And during a time like this, it's really been a lot that I've seen in the last year. A lot of people get interested in not just UFOs, but spirituality, conspiracies, all different sorts of things. I would say a large amount of people have woken up during this time, because a lot of people that are coming to me, they're completely new to the topic. They found me through something. They said a year ago, I would have thought all this was woo-ha, but now, things aren't adding up. So we're seeing this mass awakening, but this is where I'm really focusing on, especially with doing the readings every day, to where I try to leave the people with their own contact in terms of, when I'm having contact, not only, yes, am I having physical contact or light beings popping through, or I'm being teleported on board crafts or to other realms, but what's happening, whether it's physically or non-physically or astrally, there's a component of it where people go, I've been given visions and I've got all these words in my head and all these things. What they're not understanding is transdimensional communication. So what's happening is I'm getting visions bombarded in my mind's eye while I'm looking at the beings. I'm getting complete thought transfer with that information in form of telepathy. I can even get smells, tastes, sensations on the body, hearing. Basically, you've got your 5 sensuality: sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, and then telepathy in the mind's eye, all working in sync. And this is why we don't need a lot of the time the physical contact. That it happens when it happens for a numerous amount of reasons, whether it's they're allowed to be seen, whether these beings can drop their frequency enough to resonate with us for a certain amount of time. But a lot of the time, even when I'm filming a craft, I'm seeing on board the craft and I'm seeing the way they perceive this reality while I'm filming the craft, or while I'm interfacing with them, depending on how they want to operate. Because a lot of these intelligences, not all, pardon me, they don't see you and I as human. They don't see our skin, our eyes, our hair. They see us structured from light. They see our light body and they see this realm structured from light. And so this is what I would say happens with what I'd call the higher dimensional extraterrestrials. But like I said, that's even child's play before you go to the next level. But the thing is, these extraterrestrials are doing what we're doing as well, or trying to do, a small amount of the population, which is being open transdimensionally to experience the other realms and otherworldly beings. So they, through themselves, are going through their own self-mastery experience. So this is where it gets convoluted, because I think we've got a problem where people are looking up to them as gods, or that they've got the answers, whether they realize it or not, which is why the Pleiadians dropped off a long time ago. They've been working in the peripheral. They are stepping forward again. Not just the Pleiadians, but Arcturians, Sirians, Andromedans, Lyrians, you name it, the list goes on and on. But that's only what's local to our sector. What else is in our galaxy, not just on, we could say, the third dimensional level, but going beyond that, and what's in the other galaxies and the other vibrations where stars and planets don't exist. That's the really interesting thing. But when we look at all this on a deeper level, you and I already know this, and so does everyone watching this. It's just a lot of people have got amnesia, partly due to their soul development, partly due to they wouldn't do their mission if they knew everything. I sure as hell don't know 1% out of a billion trillion percent of what's going on, but I know a lot more than most. But I'm learning every day with this. I'm still coaching myself, and the beings are sort of weaning me into helping myself basically to follow this journey and path. So it's quite interesting, I guess, how things are playing out with that.
Yeah, and just for the record, if you guys are watching, he has more contact and more actual proof of this than I think anybody I've ever met. And this is documented. This is not like, oh, this guy, blah, 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 he says that. I mean, you have lots of pictures, video, evidence, correct? Can you speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, so if people go to petermaxwellslattery.com or ecityaustralia.org or jsanctuary.com, go to my YouTubes, Facebook, a lot of this is documented. Not just that, there is like over 300 witnesses that have been in my presence, like locally in my home over a 10-year period, let alone thousands of people around the world when I've done events that have experienced this themselves from all walks of life, people that are in aerospace, people that are in the military, people that are police officers, down to like just average school teachers and ambulance people and everyday Joe, the way we explain it here in Australia. So it is something where there is landing marks that I've got. I've got marks on the body that will glow in the dark for a certain period of time after I've got the marks on the body. I've got sort of a crystal metal sample that's a combination of bit of the both, but there's a few different samples. There's one that's sort of a quartz mixed in with another sort of crystal that's unexplainable that I've got that over the many years, it's just that sort of, I guess, sort of a package that there's a lot more to it than what people think. But it is a lot of what I'm saying, and I don't want people to believe me, but a lot of what I'm saying to other people, of course, is going to be hearsay. But when they delve into the case and when they talk to me and they look at the evidence, they start to go, all right, well, he's not just one of these other people that are talking about it. And I'm not putting other people down that can't provide evidence. I'm just one of those people that's been part of the mission to document and glean the evidence over a period of time. And there's a lot more to that that's coming out in the feature film called Multidimensional later this year, because what got interesting is you've got James Gilliland's perspective and Mary's, but then what John Vivanco and his team of up to 40 remote viewers that are remote viewed my case, there seems to be this sort of correlating theme that even is a bit hard for me to digest of why me. And it's not that I'm special, but there's a certain reason why I'm here and what I'm doing compared to, we could say, everyone else. That it's not out of ego I'm saying that. It's just what they've told me and showed me. And it starts to sink in with what the beings have sort of told me, but not said directly to me. It's sort of beating around the bush because they want me to stay with the mission. And again, it's not just extraterrestrials. It's celestial and angelic energies up to God, source, creator, that through an experience of what I saw, and the way I like to describe it is, imagine your body is God, and each cell that makes up the physical body, imagine that as your oversoul. So all of our highest expressions is a cell of God's body that we divide off and go fractal from to experience the many realms at the same time. So in a way, reincarnation doesn't exist. It's sort of a concept. It does, but it doesn't. And why I'm saying that is why are the beings telling me, but we hear saints and sages and other beings say all your lives are happening at the same time? And this is sort of the problem that we've got is with the human experience at this time, that we have to think of things in a linear perspective to digest it. So the analogy I use is when you're interacting with these beings, literally what's happening is it's like they've got a jigsaw puzzle, and each puzzle's a bit of information. They're just going, bang, take that. And you're getting the information, but a lot of the time with most people that I know, they don't understand the picture of what the jigsaw puzzle is. They understand certain bits of information. So what happens through the way that I've been trained with the contact over the time, weaning into it from the human experience, is to take sort of control, not control the contact, but take control of the way I'm integrating the information in a way that's linear so I understand it. Otherwise, it's just information thrown.
Yep.
And so this is sort of like the multidimensional concept of all this, that it's hard for people to digest because they're still looking at things in a linear way. And this is the thing, we're multidimensional beings, but we have to operate in a linear time the way that we're experiencing at this time. But through the senses, we do go transdimensional. So really, the senses are the way that we interface transdimensionally, but the body computer is where we're residing and vibrating at this time, experiencing this reality, which due to many mechanisms, whether it's, we could say part of it's got to do with Archon, Draconian, demonic control, but then the other perspective is that we wouldn't be experiencing time the way we are if the moon wasn't where it was in relation to the earth and where it is to the sun, because it opens up the hyperdimensional physics of third dimensional space, which means our time's a certain way. When you go to another planet and the way that the moons are going around it and where it is to its parent star, the time's going to be different again, because that's the way that it's set up to experience it for those beings on that. So this is where it gets sort of complicated, but what the point that I was trying to make with us being a cell of God's body is when they took me to that state, I got to the peripheral, because what they were showing me was everything on a blueprint level made up of dodecahedrons. They were like a purple hue color. But again, that's not what everything would be made of on a purest conscious form, but it was what they were showing me in one of the blueprints. But when I got to the peripheral of this universe, which is, we could say, God's source created with all its cells, I got to the peripheral and I could see countless other dodecahedrons, and I was being told these are other universes. This is what you perceive as other gods. And they basically, the clincher with this is once we evolve enough, depending on what we want to do, we can either be, we could say, types of ascended masters here in this universe, or we can divide off like a cell divides in two and create our own universe with its own planes and dimensions and cells of God's body to do it all again, but in a different way. And so that's where, it gets convoluted.
Hopefully in a higher way, it gets, I mean, and in a different language, but I would talk about like being a seer, working in all the senses, versus like a Nabi type would be just hearing and being able to audible kind of take in information, versus experience or just have a knowing or get symbols, or there's all different ways that there's contact that we can hear and talk, and just for the average Joe out there who kind of is that linear, maybe has the programming of Christianity or what have you. There is stuff even in the Bible, although the Bible has been completely translated weird and things are taken out and things are put in. Even reincarnation was taken out back in the day because people were like, well, we can't get you to pay your tithe and do all the stuff, and we can't control you. If you don't do what we say, then we're not. It doesn't work with our agenda. So they pulled it out, because then it's like you get one shot. Everybody better listen up and do the things, or you don't get a second time around. Versus before with the facets and the different ways and genetic memory, whatever you want to call it. There's so many different, people's ideas of what it could be. If they felt like we have all the times in the world, we could just come back and do it over again, then they weren't so serious about things, because maybe they thought like, oh, maybe I won't get another chance or something. But But yeah, I was just actually reading a book about the overlay, and I teach a lot about the cells. Each cell being a God, expression within us, and then we have our collective body, this body and that collective body. But then you can actually go off planet too. And I love how you brought in the timelines and all of that. But what would you say to someone who doesn't even believe in aliens or anything off planet? I can attest to what he's saying, because I actually spent time with him in a SETI, and we literally saw contact. We saw ships, multiple ships. We have it on video. I saw them with my eye. I saw them on camera over a week's period. And I don't know if it's just because he was there and they like hanging out with him and they showed up, or if it's just the mountain over there in the SETI, which, seems to have a lot of activity coming in and out of the mountain. And James, obviously, I mean, he would get down and say, okay, yep, they're coming. They're going to be here in 17 seconds. And we would count down, and boom, there would be a ship right there. And we would be like, so it's like
it's a weird place. It's a culmination of, like, James is what I call like the guardian of that area, who's led to that place. He's always had full-blown contact. I think when James and I get together, or people like us, just even visitors, it's like ramps up. So I think it's a culmination, especially with that being one of the first places, from Mount Rainier to Mount Adams, which is where the front lawn of James Gilliland's SETI. That's where Kenneth Arnold basically chased these 9 delta-shaped flying objects. They called them flying saucers, but they were more delta. And they basically landed on James's view of Mount Adams. So there's the inner Earth beings, but people that aren't open to this, what I would say is nothing to them. And why I say that is because years ago, especially when I was doing television and certain things, I wanted everyone to know. I thought it was going to change the world, but I was very ignorant because I was just getting blown. I was always experiencing stuff, but like when we look at the Bible, like I know theologians, priests, pastors, there is a culmination, especially with, we could even say, Jesus coming back and shining like light when he comes out of the cave, of maybe a form of ascension, rainbow light body, which the Tibetans go into. So when we look at the Tibetan culture, Indian, the Judeo-Christian thing, there is these correlations that, yes, there's these angelic light beings, there's the Elohim involved a lot of the time, which are one of the main beings that I'm interfacing with. Recently, I'm going to be doing more material on this soon, is how many cross references there are in the Bible as God or beings appearing as clouds, not just in the sky, but down low. Because like it is said in the documentary, I actually show this footage where we had a cigar craft and I had two people with me that saw this. A cigar craft 3 foot off the ground in what I call an apparition form. And what's happening is a lot of the time I can be in a room or in bed and they can land the craft on you and people are like, what the hell? This guy's going loopy. What's happening is, imagine a flying saucer or an AT vehicle as a ghost, as an apparition form, to where you can see an outline. It looks like a mist and it's condensed so you can sort of see structure. It can land on you and what they can do is vibrate your consciousness or even the physical body on board the craft. I didn't speak about this for many years, but I spoke to a Native American elder and even elders here in Australia. And they're like, how does a white fella know this? They're like, that's exactly how this works. They said, like, both of those groups, Aboriginal and Native American, the funny thing is they both said a lot of the time people think they're going on board craft to another star system or they're going somewhere else. Basically what's happening, like I was trying to say to them as well, from my understanding, is that they vibrate you occupying the same space but not the same time.
Different dimensions.
Yes,
right?
So there's an overlap. You're just not vibing with this reality anymore, but sometimes they can take the physical body. Other times what's happening is you're in the physical body, part of your consciousness starts to interface, resonating with them. So it's more of a mind's eye experience. And so you get to the complexities of this, which is really simple. But again, this is where the US government, in my opinion, never said UFOs don't exist. They said they're not a threat to national security. Yeah. And I think part of the cover-up, not entirely, of course, for many different reasons worldwide, not just with America, I think it's more got to do with the multidimensional concept. And then you need to be understanding multidimensional concepts and reality to be able to operate these crafts at their full potential. And then you take it to another level. A lot of these beings aren't even in a craft. They're in their light body, their Merkaba light vehicle. And all that I've talked about before that now is child's play to those types of energies. Yeah. There you go. Yep.
Yeah, well, even biblical, when it talks about the chariots,
yeah,
that word isn't chariot. The word is Merkaba, and it's like our own light spaceship, whatever you want to call it. You know, I don't know, your ability to move in different dimensions, different timelines, to have those encounters where you're transported, even in the physical, you know, or by locating, which I've had all kinds of people say, we saw you on so-and-so date or whatever, and you gave me this business card. And I was like, no, actually I was in Montana that day. And they're swearing, like they were like groups of people who swear they saw me, and I'm not even aware of things that I'm doing. I was like, talk about multitasking. You know, when we get to that realm of being able, you know, I think it takes a little bit of, first of all, intention, understanding that we are multifaceted and that we have these skills, that this is in our technology already within our body. But also, I think detoxing some of the programs, foods, you know, all the stuff that we're bombarded with, you know, like having a clean diet, having a clean life, and doing everything we can, because that's just going to get us in that clear, high vibe, you know, ability. With scalar waves, you mentioned, you know, frequencies and dimensions. We can actually test if someone is 4D, 3D. You know, we've tested people all the way up to 11D who are walking around on the planet now alive, but they're still extra dimensional. And you know, so not everyone is in, I mean, there are a lot of people in 3D right now, but there are groups of people who are in the middle, going to fourth, fifth, and then some people who have way gone above, and they're testable. I mean, this is like, you can test the field and see where people are. And just like what you said is, I think you guys have some special gift where you're, who knows what you are, test, you know, what dimension you are. I mean, obviously you have a body, a physical body, but we can be in a physical body and still test higher and have that ability to get higher. And they don't want to come down to us because this is like terrible drudgery, 3D, boring, like hard pain, you know. But when we can go up higher, we can actually meet them. They can come down, we can meet up. And then that overlay that you're talking about, I think that's where like miracles happen, and the supernatural, which should be natural, you know. I don't know, but speak into that. I love this conversation.
Yeah, I think there's a few components to a few things that you've just said. It is rising to the occasion to meet these beings halfway. I think at the same time, Ascension gets thrown around too much in this community, and I'm right into teaching people techniques. Ascension is real, but what form of ascension? We've got the rainbow light body, which is being an unbounded being. Even again, we go beyond light. So everything is consciousness and awareness, which goes into a vibratorial state, which is sound. Sound creates light, light creates physical matter. And even lately at the Hadron Kaleidoscope, they actually smashed light particles together and created first bits of matter. Even if it's very minuscule, they're looking into this. So, of course, there's going to a new earth or another dimension, but what people are forgetting right now in this community is it's about being bloody right here, right now. It's like when COVID and everything happened, I'm like, what do you guys expect? I've been expecting something like this, and even it to get even crazier the entire time. Because it's like, to shift consciousness first, look at what happens collective. All your crap comes up that needs to be purged. You need to release. You're looking in the mirror at yourself going, I don't like this about me. I could be doing this better. What am I doing to be of service? What am I doing with my life? There's this whole thing where when people wake up, their life goes to crap. And I'm like, well, that's meant to happen. And they're like, it's meant to happen. It's not all love and light and all fairy and you're on a cloud floating around. First off, everything that doesn't serve you has to be purged. It has to be released. And there you start going up the chain. So your friends, your family, people are going to start dropping off the bandwagon with you, and you're going to be like, I'm by myself now, but you eventually find your tribe.
Yes.
So this is the thing where it's boots on the ground now, and don't worry about ascending. If you're meant to ascend, you will ascend. If not, a lot of people, in my opinion, won't ascend. It's not that they're bad people, or if they are bad people, they're not meant to at this time because their soul evolution isn't at that point. Then there's going to be people that will be staying in this frequency that will be guides to those that are left in the third dimension to help them raise their frequency eventually. There'll be those that will go to other Earths or other dimensions or what have you. So there is this process where it's like, don't look up to the extraterrestrials as gods. Two, what I'd say is you've got to be here and in the now. Like, don't be external. It's like with Trump, Q, all that. Everyone was like, they're going to solve everything. Now, I haven't got anything against any of that, but the thing is, if you think one man or one group is going to solve this problem, you're in denial, because the thing is, every single person needs to do the inner work, and if enough of us do it, that has an effect on the overall collective. They were beacons of light to assist with this type of thing, and that some of it's been hijacked, of course. It's not my thing to go into. I do have military intelligence and other things on these types of things, which I don't go into often because it doesn't matter. I'm like, they got their plan, I got mine. And this is the thing, everyone needs their own plan to work within this. So there is a purging to include with this too of the epigenetic component, because throughout the cells, there is stuff that not only do we need to release, but we need to release for our ancestors, which also affects future lineage as well. Because when you're able to tap into the cells on a light level, there is no space and time, and you connect into the unified field. You start interfacing with it. This is where we manifest. This is where our thoughts create. So there is a component where we are the strongest beings here at this time, from what I've been told. Not only are we a conglomerate of different extraterrestrial civilizations, but we're even on a light blueprint level encoded with what we could say is angelic DNA on a light structure, that we can do things that no other intelligence in the human form can do trans-dimensionally. And even these light beings are gleaning stuff from the human light body once beings have incarnated into it. And they're basically sort of absorbing it into their light body, almost like they're making themselves hybrids, because, again, we can do stuff that we're not even capable of at the moment on a collective civilization level. So this is where, first off, it's the inner work, and then if that's done to a certain point, then we've got the group collective consciousness that needs to be done as well. But they sort of go hand in hand, like with the book that I've brought out recently, CE5, Initiating Contact with Extraterrestrials. Again, that's the stepping stone that I go into everything that we've been talking about today on a deeper level. But you've got two components with that. You've got, for example, with me, I'll get new people coming to the groups that have never seen anything. They've got intention. They'll have an experience, they'll go home, and their experiences will continue. And then you've got people that are already experiences that come, but then it starts to take a different twist for them because now it's happening in a group setting. Mm-hmm. And so contact, for example, is two components. There's the individual compartment, and then there's the group compartment where it's happening with other people. And this is what we're going through now if we take it to a bigger level. Everyone's going through what we could say is an individual shift in consciousness. But because of that, really, the globe is going through like a group collective shift in consciousness as well. So really, it's like at the moment we're one of those snowballs, and God's just shaking it and causing a lot of chaos, because it's the chaos that needs to happen for a new system to come into play. So that way, everything that's controlled and structured that isn't in line with humanity and where we're wanting to go, that's got to be turned on its head. So this should have been expected long ago.
Well, and I've said things like that. I've in a different way. I've talked about, like, whether you're in a healing crisis. A lot of times things look way worse before they get better. Like in a detox, things look way worse before they look better. But I even attributed it to, like, let's say you're going to clean out your garage. You know, it's going to look like terrible at first when you just like throw everything out, put it in the thing, and then figure out what's going to get thrown out, what's going to get put back in. Is it going to be more organized? And is this good or that, you know, not good or bad, but you know what I mean? It's like, sometimes it does get super messy. And I think that a lot of the things that are happening, at least in my practice and what I'm seeing, is these external things are actually triggering things that are in the DNA and or the subconscious. And it's all coming up that way because of these triggers. And also, you mentioned, you know, this expectation for like a person or a group or Santa Claus or whoever, to come get us off the planet, or, Jesus coming back. And, I'm a big fan of Jesus. Jesus is the highest scalar wave of any human that ever lived on this planet. And, and he never left, because we have spirit, we have the DNA too. But also it takes away our experience and our ability to grow and to evolve as humans, and to actually see what our integrity is in the middle. Integrity only happens out of choices. Champions are not born in the ring, they are made there. So if you have an egg with a chick and it's trying to come out, or a caterpillar with a butterfly, it's like you could break through and make it come out, but then it takes away from them building and exercising and making their choices and growing as a chick or as a butterfly. It can actually kill them to not have that experience. And so we're in the experience, and there are opportunities to grow, to make choices, to do things, to not do things, lay low, or go here or go there, or talk to this person or don't talk to that person. But it's all individual, and what you do may not be what I need to do. And all of those watching, we all have our different assignments and missions and what have you. So we can't even compare and go, is this what I was supposed to be doing? And ask everybody, because we have to go inside. We have to find out what our blueprint is and what our contract is with what we're doing while we're here. And I've said the same thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's we can't just wait on some person or group, because otherwise, where's our collective action to make the changes and have that experience of being the ones? We're the ones, like the Matrix. We're Neo. We got to do something, or we get to do something. I won't say we got to, because no one has to do anything, but we get to. So but yeah, keep going. Sorry, loving that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Look, I think at the same time, something over the years that I've learned is to ask God, what do I need to do, in terms of, let me be your vehicle to work through what needs to be done. Sometimes what we think we need to do isn't what needs to be done, and that's why everything goes to crap. So there is that component, but then we could say it's the devil or demonic or archonic forces, reptilians, to the point where what we've got is we've got a war on thought happening.
Yeah, yes.
And this war on thought, the way I can describe it is we have the R part of the brain next to the pineal gland. Now, many scientists I've spoken to, when I've done some research looking into this, there's no definitive conclusion, because it's not natural to the body. Now, some say it was introduced 13,000 years ago. Some say 100,000 years ago. My material, with the Shiji material, the books that I've done, it goes into around, I think it was around the 330,000 year plus mark. Now, so therefore, what we've got is a device in us that's biological, but to me is a transdimensional device, that what happens is we get triggered there, but they say it's fight or flight. Now, what I'll say is it may assist with fight or flight, but it's not purely fight or flight, because if we didn't have it, going back a very long time, why did we have fight or flight characteristics as cavemen? If we look at that component, they always cop out, oh, no, it's a fight or flight. Well, hang on a minute. Why did we have fight or flight back then? How the hell are we still here today? But what happens is when we get triggered, it could be somebody says something you don't like. We lose our crap because something happens in our day that we didn't expect, which people need to be at peace at, because every day is not going to go how you want it to go to. This is where self-mastery kicks in, being the observer, because we've got an aspect here that, just like the angelics and ETs can read you like a book, they can read everything about you, your thoughts, your intentions, your good thoughts, your bad things, everything about you. To tell you the truth, they really don't care. They've got love, compassion, non-judgment. But what's happening is what I call the lower light, which is the opposing forces. They too can read you like a book and go, oh, she did this 30 years ago. Let's play this in her head for 2 or 3 hours today. Your vibration goes down. That emotion starts to go through the pineal gland, or not the pineal gland, through the R part of the brain. It's triggered, and it feeds what I call the artificial intelligence, which is a grid that was set up by the lower light to basically hold this veil in place, and it's a form of food source for the archons, which, going back a long time to different, like the Nagamati texts, they talk about these serpent, reptilian, and grey fetus-looking beings, which are part of this network that these are the beings that are operating. They're in a distorted frequency, which is how they've got to operate. But this ascension is for them too, because what's happening is, especially with certain forms of types of reptilians, they're getting to the point that they can't evolve no longer because they're stagnant. And so they need to change as well. So we've got this component where we're in a war on thought. And to me, what's being not spoken about enough that I'd like to go into now is what are people doing to bring joy, love, and bliss into their life? Because the spiritual community, to me, I don't want to be any part of even the UFO community, even the spiritual community. People like, what? But we're talking now and this and that. I've got people I'll work with and talk to, like yourself, James, others. But the thing is, it's got so distorted, this community, and hijacked that it's got so serious. There is no love, joy, or bliss in, like I would say, over 90% of this community now. It's I'm right, you're wrong. This is the story. That's the way it is. Again, I don't want people to believe me, but when we look at the real teachings, whether it's of Jesus or Buddha, yes, there's being the observer, but it's enjoying this experience. This experience, there is no experience in the universe where touching something like this, or feeling the heat or cold, being able to see, smell, hug, the breeze on your skin, all these types of things, it's very hard for a lot of us because we haven't been here, if you haven't been here before, to where it feels very dense. I'll tell you a quick experience. There was a time I was put under, which there's only 3 times I was put under in hypnotherapy, and I didn't mind it, but it was too weird for me because the beings would speak through me, and they'll turn the cameras and the lights on and off in the room, and there would be small groups of people. The last time I did it was probably 6 years ago, and I came back to the body and I cried for about 40 minutes plus. Nobody could get a word out of me. And what I came to the conclusion was, I know why babies cry now. Because when I came back, I felt like I was underwater, but like the denseness was times 100. It was so heavy here, and I'm like, whoa, I was just out here unbounded, and now I'm back, and this is friggin' heavy, real heavy. And I just I couldn't stop crying because I'm like, I didn't want to come back because what I'm feeling now just is really heavy. So what we've got is an aspect where we are unbounded beings, and we are in a state, especially when you leave the body, depending on your frequency. If you think dark, you're going to experience these darker reptilian demonic realms. Once you shift your frequency, you'll start to go to the higher realms, and then you'll go beyond light. You go into a vibratorial state, and then you're unbounded everything.
Yes.
And that's the key to this, is getting to that point, because it's not what people expect. They expect to see the seraphim and little angels and fairies walking around, and there is all that, but that's actually still the lower dimensions. That's outside of Source's frequency resonant field that you're in. But with this experience, we're meant to be experiencing the denseness of it. We're meant to be experiencing the trials and tribulations. It goes into self-mastery of just observing the day, making the changes that you can, accepting the changes that you can't make. But with that said, where's the joy coming in? Like, when was the last time, most people that are watching this, when was the last time you just laughed over something stupid? When did you tell a joke? When was the last time you went for a walk, or you put music on and danced around the house, or had a bath with Epsom salts, or did a hobby or something that you did years ago that sort of you zoned out and you had fun with? It doesn't mean, what I'm saying is you got to sit on top of a mountain and act like Muhammad Gandhi for 5 hours and sit there and, meditate. Some people, for meditation, it could be swimming laps in a pool. It could be going for a hike. It might be knitting. It might be playing the guitar. Whatever zones people out and brings them joy, bliss, and a reset, this is what people need to get back into now, because on top of this, the ascension process for those that are ready is getting hijacked, because what happens is they start to raise their frequency, and then it gets all serious. And what happens is they're not realizing the more that you're raising your frequency, the more you have to ground through the types of things that we've talked about. Because what happens is you end up with your head in the clouds. This here needs to be anchored into the body computer. So the grounding and doing joyful, blissful things is what brings that through. And it raises your frequency at the same time, meaning the body computer frequency to match spirit even more. And so it's a bit of a concern for me seeing this over the years. I'm a very serious, but I'm a very enjoyable person. You've probably seen stupid jokes that I crack, me and James, and the crap that we do at the ranch. it's not like we're just sitting there and we meditate for 14 hours a day, though. I do that sort of stuff once in a blue moon for certain periods, and I do about 4 hours of practices a day. But I say to people, you don't need to be doing what I'm doing. You need to find what zones you out and makes you blissful. And that's what you need to make is like a regular recurrence in your daily life, because that's what works for you. So what works for somebody else is going to be completely different for me and you as well. So it's my rant, but I want people to think about these things because I don't see it being approached, if at all, or enough.
Yeah, my dog's barking. So I would love to hear why he's saying this and why we're talking. I would love to hear what things you guys do that bliss you out, that give you energy, that, you know, you can pay attention to different things and go, oh my gosh, I feel life and more energy and more joy and more happiness and just feel strength when I do blank. I'd love to hear what kind of things that you guys do. But just like you were saying, Peter, about the thought, the mind games, I know they can implant things in our minds. And what's interesting is I do biofeedback with technology, a real technology, not just my brain's doing like scanning. But this morning there were a couple things that I've never seen on any scan. I've done thousands of scans, and it actually showed twice on this person, and I wrote it down. One, it said that the frequency machine needed to lock down the DNA from tampering, and it was in a high, like over 700 score, which that means that's like not good. And then there was another one that showed that there had been tampering of the DNA. Now we know whether it's like military, my lab stuff, or ET stuff, or chemtrails, the V, I'm not going to say the word of what people are doing in their arms. But all of that has AI and nanotechnology in it, and they can actually program, not to mention just, you know, with thought and, you know, very skilled people and very probably average people can implant thoughts into people and beings. But I want to say that there's a flip side to that too, because we can actually have a Christ conscious mindset and be deliberate in what we're thinking about. And the word disciple comes from discipline, and discipline disciple is like, the point is like when you recognize it coming in, you could go, you know what, this isn't my thought. This isn't line up with Christ consciousness. This is like a terrible thought. And we have the ability to demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of Christ. But that takes action. And it first takes the awakening and knowing that it's even there, and knowing, okay, this isn't something I would normally be thinking about. Or, you know, you talked about something, implanting something from 20 years ago and playing the tape over and over again until it creates. And that's the thing that we can do as humans that they're not able to do, is we create. And we have this heart ability to actually send out heart magnetism to go and to create, use our mind and our heart to put into the field the ability to create things and to manifest things. And so that's why they've taken our DNA and doing everything else to try to get back into what they've hybrided themselves out of, or killed themselves off to do. But yeah, I've never seen that on a DNA on a chart before, and I just thought, you know, I know with the 5G and all this other stuff, you know, you could do like zeolites and essential oils and grounding and different things to help keep the balance of it. But what would you say as far as, you know, dealing with those thoughts to make sure that we're not coming into agreement with whatever it is that could be out there through Mockingbird and programming and outside sources?
Beautiful point. There's a few components to this, because what people need to recognize is that our mind is God's mind. But with that, it's like how we get those thoughts, we can get positive and negative thoughts. So what I say to people is, be aware, what's the fruit of the information of the thought? Is it about you becoming a better person, being of service? Is it mirroring your own crap back, going, geez, you spoke to this person this way today or did this? Like, it will have positive stuff that sometimes you don't want to hear. But then on the flip side, if it's what I say of service to self or manipulative, controlling, usually what you'll notice too, for people that are sensitive, it will feel like their heart's being pulled into their stomach, like they're going down a roller coaster. You're going down in frequency because something in a lower vibratory state's coming in. But then you've got the trickster energy sitting in the middle that if you react positively, it'll give you a positive experience. Negatively, you will get a negative experience, but there's no fruit to the information. It's nonsensical. So you've got that component as well. But I guess clearings is a very big thing to where, to me, and I'm sort of like go all out or not at all type of person. Like when I start a book, I do it till it's done. When I make a movie, it's done till it's done. When I'm helping people, it's done till it's done. But what's happening is the biggest technology is our consciousness. And when you tap into God, from there, anything can be rectified. It doesn't matter. This is why Jesus was saying, have faith. He who has little faith, it's like basically nothing's going to happen for him. But he who's got faith, that's why they could see again the blind, because they had faith when they came to Jesus. Now, it wasn't really Jesus that was doing it. Jesus, we could say, was a vehicle, but them believing meant that they believed in him and they believed in God. And then therefore there was the activation of whatever it was being rectified, whether it was a disease or ailments or blindness, whatever it is. And so it's losing that doubt, but not even believing. I want to take it to a next level now. What I'll say is that the stuff that I talk about, I know, I don't believe. Now, it's not saying that I know everything as well, but I know it. I don't believe it. This is a problem with this community as well. And it's sort of like me giving everyone a bit of a, we could say, North Dimensional bitch slap at the moment. But this is the thing. We've got too much belief going on. And what happens is I'll be the first to put my hand up if I'm wrong. We've got to be willing to be wrong to learn and grow and get out of our comfort zone and go to the next level. So this is a component here where it's taking things from a belief system now and taking it into a knowing level. And the only way we can know is to experience it and also have our blinders down and be open to experience and to have new insight. And we could say other people's insights that may activate something within us to finally get something.
Yes.
So I'm learning. I learn from you. I learn from the people that come to me as clients. I'm learning actually more from other people that God's working through them, telling me something that what happens is when we can't see the forest from the trees because we're in the middle of the friggin' forest, we don't see things going on. So what I say to those that are close to me, if I need to see something that I'm not seeing, be the first to tell me. I'm not going to go off or go, you're wrong, or sit in ego. It's like, well, there's a perspective I'm not seeing because I'm in the middle of what's going on. So I can't see what everyone else is seeing. So there is a component with this that I'll say that the main thing is knowing that God's got this. God's got this right now. Whatever's going right or wrong in your life, it's meant to be happening, whether it's shutting doors or opening new doors to get you to where you need to go. But if you surrender to God, and I'm not saying like just the God of the Judeo-Christian Bible, or I mean like the God that encompasses all consciousness, which is really what it's talking about, because these days, predominantly the world population that is Christian, they're following the King James Bible that was manipulated and changed so he could do the stuff in his reign that he wanted to do, and all the other kings before him did the same thing. So the Bible that we know is not the actual Bible because it's being changed to keep us in a draconian network. But what I say is you can feel and you can read or feel when you're reading the things that are speaking of the light. Yeah. And this is the thing, nothing can hide that. And this is why really the Bible, what was done to it was done for the reason of a lot of back then, especially with Jesus, things were around by word of mouth and they couldn't stop it. So what it is we can't stop these stories getting out there, but what we can do is we can manipulate them and put them in this book. But there's always stuff that's going to get through that's going to speak to the person's consciousness and tap into their own Christ self, which is basically tapping into the unified field, which is God. So this is where intention and doing clearing techniques, even for myself, I'm probably doing about 100 a day, but
wow.
I'm doing them for clients. I do probably a handful of intense ones that go for a few minutes up to 20 minutes. So really long, intense ones. But then again, not everyone needs to do that. I'm in the public eye. Even people that have ill thoughts of you on a mass level, it can really project a psychic attack that they don't even know about. And the analogy I'll use, which is sort of stupid, but can you remember years ago, probably 15 years ago, Britney Spears, when she shaved her head and she went to that mental place and all that? Now, she was in the public eye before that, getting a lot of crap. Now, what I would say happened, as far out as it sounds, is when everyone's seen her shave her head and then she's gone into the mental facility, everyone would have been thinking, this woman's crazy. What the hell is going on? And you've got, like, let's say millions of people thinking that and projecting that. That created a mass psychic attack that I'd say most humans wouldn't be able to deal with. She's probably unaware of it. I'd say she might even still be unaware of it if she's not into this sort of stuff. So This is where, be careful what you think and project towards other people, because not only is it ill intent towards them if it's of a negative nature, but when God comes back around, you're going to get your butt kicked as well. It's going to come back at you. So that's why I'm very big on clearing techniques. And it's not meaning you got to do what I've got to do, but saging, visualizing you're in a ball of light, calling upon God to work through you and to clear your energies, or whatever it is, there's something that people need to take that time out. But what I recommend is, firstly, every day when you get up, spending time with God. It's something I do. I get up, I meditate. After that, I'm doing my practices, and I put on affirmations on YouTube. Just play it in the background. I don't listen to it, but I'm subliminally reprogramming the brain. Because what's happening is we've been told you can't achieve this if you haven't got that. You can't do this. It's all the way through education in our family and friends that you're not capable of this. But with affirmations, even playing in the background, not focusing on it, you're subliminally reprogramming yourself with self-worth and belief in that I can do anything that I'm putting my mind to and that I'm putting my energy to. But firstly, it's got to be, what does God want? Because from there, everything gets taken care of.
Yep, that's good. Two things. When you were talking about the knowing, dropping into the knowing, I've said this before. It's like saying, like, oh, well, I can feel for you because I read about having a miscarriage, or I read about when your dad dies. And it's like, that's so sad, versus like, you've lived it, you know it, you understand it. And then there's an authority that comes through healing of that. And there's an activation, even when there's a victory through something, whatever it started out bad and then got good or whatever, but the victory energy of being able to activate people into that because you lived it and you came through, and instead of just staying in the non-victory. One thing I want to mention too is you mentioned the Britney Spears thing. I think there's been studies where the Schumann and what have you, it's 7.83 on the Schumann, but they started putting these generators in different parts of the world. And back when what's the guy? O.J. Simpson had first had his situation on TV, and there was like a direct, like everyone, I think that was the first time that I actually recorded on these generators that there was a surge in energy on the planet. And I really feel it's because of the media that gave it attention, where all of us could lock in to, oh my God, there's the white Bronco and it's driving, blah, blah, blah. And it actually raised, right? I mean, does everyone remember where you were when that happened? I mean, if you were old enough. But then so that was recorded, and the scientists were like, oh my gosh, and since then, Princess Diana getting married, Princess Diana's death, 9/11, and all these different main things, has actually changed the Schumann on the planet because of all the energy focus on a person. And that's one of the things in our biofeedback reading too. We can actually see if someone is having a psychic attack against them. And so when I talk about this in my book, it's like, if you have a sick person that's in your family that you want people to pray for, do not post like the person in the hospital with all the wires coming out and looking their worst day, and just like on their deathbed with an oxygen thing. I see people who will post, themselves, in the hospital and go, hey, please pray for me. And it's like, but then what happens is we're all locked into that image. So we're holding that person in the image of the worst case, a terrible scenario. Because when we image, we're creating to imagination. And so I think that we have to, what I encourage people to do is, especially with social media, if you want to put something out there, put a beautiful, like, strong picture of your dog or your family member or whatever in their highest, and say, hey, send victory prayers to my dad or my mom or whoever. And then they're locked into seeing a healthy soul with light being in their best and sending that and seeing that outcome to be able to manifest that. And then your friends and their friends and anyone who shared it multiplies. And there's that collective of seeing a higher outcome with that, because I think media has been weaponized in some ways, even without people realizing, it can work both ways though. We can use it for the positive, just like we're using this video and interview as a positive. So that's one thing. But then last thing I wanted to just talk about entities, because one of the things that I notice with psychic attack, entities, dark forces, what have you, is, people who participate in, alcohol, cigarettes, vaping, drugs, all the things, it'll show up on the scan, and that is consent. And I'll say, this is a bad number, are you participating? And they're like, oh, I do this for meditation, or I do this for whatever. But, it's like, okay, well, and you are allowed, obviously you have a free will and you can do whatever you want, but I'm also letting you know that this is a 10 on megahertz, and, we're 67 on a megahertz. Death is 25. So you participate in death entities will show up, and we won't even know that we're being manipulated by draconian, archon, low vibe situations. And so can you speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, look, this is something that's very true what you're saying. So I think when there's biases, what's behind the bias needs to really be looked at. Whether it's doing a certain drug or, whatever it is, it could be sexual addiction or, there's a billion things that people can get addicted to. It's looking at what's behind it and owning your own crap. Owning your own crap at the end of the day. So what's happening is when you're working through these types of things, yes, there is, what I say is we have a psychic barrier, but that can, some talk about holes in it or what have you. But what's happening is you can be a vehicle when you're using mind-altering substances or things that you aren't operating in your full potential. You are basically, you've got a PowerPoint plug hole for them to plug into and to work through as well. Now, I know that for some people, they're probably in better spots than what they once were. They might be doing less. They might be only smoking cigarettes now rather than drinking 5 bottles of wine a week or whatever. There's a way that people get to that to achieve that goal. But I think as long as they analyze themselves and go, everyone knows what they could be doing better. Everyone knows if they're doing something wrong to themselves. If they first own that, they're 80% of the way of rectifying it. But this is where it really comes down to, what do I want to be doing with my life? There's a point that people have to get pissed off with themselves in what I call a positive pissed offness. And I think even with myself in the past and in life, when I get to that point that I'm sick of this crap, I'm not acting this way, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not putting up with that, that's when we get the change. But what holds a lot of people back is getting out of their comfort zone, because they get into this comfort area. And I've said this many times, what stops one getting out of their comfort zone is fear of the unknown and fear of security. In this case, the security could be part of them having drugs and being numb. I know a lot of people that had used drugs in the past, and what happened my conclusion is, looking at it, is they didn't want to deal with life or the problems that came with it or the drama. So it was a way for them to escape. But at the end of the day, what they're trying to escape from can come back 40 years later and bite. You're never going to get away from it. But what you can do is confront it with a loving heart, good intent, and stepping in your power. And when you're connected to God through that, there is no hurdle. It's just a bump. That's all that it can be. But it's hard for people, whether it's their upbringing, who they surround themselves with is very like-minded. This is where a lot of people will put themselves in situations that aren't for their own good, but it's because it's what they're vibing with at that time, and other entities can work through them, the people around them and things like that. So it really comes down to, I think, people owning their own crap, but being open to purge, release, and know that, yeah, that it may not feel good about themselves, but that's okay. But they can move through this, and it's going to take work. But when you get to the other side of that comfort zone and you're out of it, what's awaiting on the other side is more bigger and beautiful than one could ever imagine.
Yeah, and again, no judgment at all. I smoked for years. I've drank. I think everyone goes through their journey of whatever things are. I mean, some people, drinking soda is a no-no. And I mean, I don't personally drink soda, but I did for years. And then I got to that place, like you said, it was like, no, I don't think this is what I need to do anymore. And I stopped. Or sugar or candy, or, I mean, you can go to every level. You know, maybe some people, you know, can do this and can't do that. So, you know, I think it's just paying attention to what we know we can do and what's our best, and then like researching it a little bit and trying to, you know, make sure that we're doing what being on the path of where we need to be. But I like your intro. I think that's really cool. I like it. So we're coming up on the hour. Do you have any final words? And also, if you can like give a shout out for your books and like where people can find you and what you got, you know, where people can connect with you further. And because there are tons of people here who I know they're already like, we just found his Facebook and all of that kind of stuff. So definitely let us know any final words and how we can connect with you.
Just everyone be kind to yourself, and remember that you're amazing, powerful beings. Just that's what we all are deep down. I want to leave that on a positive note because I want people to connect within and just know that we are all amazing, powerful beings, and we've all got our own things that we specialize in and we excel in, and that's our, we could say, God-given gifts, and to, I guess, use them is what I'm saying. But for myself, petermaxwellslattery.com or ecityaustralia.org, and also now jsanctuary.com. And those pages have links to all social media. Keep posted as well, because there should be a trailer out soon for the documentary and other exciting things happening. So I've been quiet for about a year, but it wasn't for the reasons people thought. I was working my butt off, getting a lot of things done behind the scenes so I could be putting things out in this year and helping more people than ever as well. So, yeah, thank you for having me on your show as well. It's been a pleasure doing this with you.
Yes, awesome. And I just really appreciate your work and your service and your heart for so many people. I mean, a lot of times, you know, you meet people like yourself, and then, you know, you see them and you follow them, you read their books, and you meet them in real life and you're like disappointed and you're like, and you got to throw the books out and you're just like, that sucks. But you're like the same in real life as you are everywhere, and you could feel you and read through your books, and you could feel the essence of purity of who you are and what you're doing, and your true love for humanity to be at its highest. And I just really appreciate who you are and what you're doing, and I'm so glad we got to get you back on. So I know you guys are going to follow. And I hope to have you back on again. And don't forget, Mary Rodwell will be on with us Thursday.
That should be good.
She's yeah. What would you say about Mary? Explain Mary for those of you who don't know.
She's what I call like Mama Starseed. She's like the stars, the mum to all star seeds. But there is nothing you can tell her that will blow her mind. If anything, it sort of adds to other things she knows, and she might get a bigger picture. But she's helped thousands of people behind the scenes, families, children, really help people that are going through mind-altering and experiences that have really changed their world. So she's like, to me, like a guiding light is the way that I put it. She's somebody that she doesn't lead people on either. She's very good at what she does in the way that once you go to her and you work with her, and we became good friends, she's got a way of helping you to help yourself to find your own answers without her doing it. It may be the way that she questions or articulates or helps you reflect. That's what's amazing about it, because she's not going to tell you what you need to know or what your experiences are about. She'll help you work that out yourself. Yeah. And it's beautiful how she works, and she's just a beautiful being.
Yes. And you know what? I could say the same thing about you. You never were like, in anything that we've ever done, you've never said, this is what you need to do, or you need to stop doing that. You were always encouraging to like go within, and you know the answers. You have everything you need. You know, I like how you do the same thing. So that's great. But so you guys go check him out. And also please go to swiftfire.org. Like I said, we're in YouTube jail right now, but I am on BitChute. I should be back on YouTube in a little bit. But in the meantime, if you go to swiftfire.org, you can get on the newsletter at least and see who's upcoming, what we're doing, and maybe what platform we're going to be on whenever they have these little bumps in the road, so we can make sure we're staying connected. But definitely get his books. And I hope to come out to your place. I saw pictures of it. It looks gorgeous. I love the pictures that you put out there. It just, you can almost feel it like right in the images of like, wow, this is a special piece of land. And I just honor you for what you're doing. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Keep up the good work yourself as well. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, you guys have a great night and keep doing all you're doing wherever you are, and just being the light and being kind and loving, and ignite Christ in everyone you contact. Ignite that love and everyone you contact. Keep positive. Go find the things that make you happy and do those things. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
Bye.